Welcome to The Explainer. Listen, if you're here right now, you've stepped up to take on a genuinely vital responsibility in the Humboldt County Sheriff's Office of Emergency Services Simulations. I'm going to be your mentor today. Over the next few minutes, we're going to get you totally field ready for your indispensable role as a controller during the Beacon exercises. For those of you who might be new to the acronym, Beacon stands for Building Emergency Area Communications, Operations, and Networks. Basically, it's a critical stress test of our emergency communication infrastructure, and honestly, your role in evaluating it is absolutely paramount. I am thrilled to guide you through exactly what you need to know to succeed out there in the field. Let's get to work.
Okay, let's dive into this. Here is our flight path for today's briefing. 1. Welcome to the team. 2. Your controller toolkit. 3. Mastering field observation. And 4. Facilitating the hot wash.
All right, kicking things off with Section 1. Welcome to the team.
Stepping into an emergency exercise, it can definitely feel a bit overwhelming at first, but we actually have a really clear framework to keep you grounded and effective. So make this your ultimate mantra. Your role is to document your observations without injecting your own opinions, right? As a controller, you are literally our eyes and ears on the ground. The immense gravity of this position just cannot be overstated. We need reality exactly as it unfolds during the simulation, completely uncolored by your personal feelings on how things, maybe should be done. Strict neutrality is, for sure, your absolute greatest asset here.
So, you might be wondering, what exactly is a controller anyway? Well, you're an exercise participant whose primary function is to provide situation updates, moderate discussions, and resolve questions as they actually arise. You are the structural support for the whole simulation. And the really fascinating part is how dynamic your deployment might actually be. Depending on your assigned task, you could be stationed right at the Emergency Operations Center, inside a mobile communications unit, out at a remote field observation post, or maybe even at a home agency or residence. But wherever you end up, your core function remains exactly the same: steady, observant moderation.
Moving right along to Section 2, your controller toolkit.
You just can't do the job if you don't have the right gear when you finally get out into the field. First up, a smartphone for photos. But please note this carefully. You must always secure permission before snapping anything. Next, a dedicated clock or watch. This one is absolutely non-negotiable, guys, because your primary job is documenting exact chronological timing. Bring a trusty notebook and plenty of pens, because, let's be real, they will inevitably break or just get lost out there. Finally, a radio to monitor traffic. Now, this is purely optional. You can absolutely succeed without one, but it can be really handy. Now, I know what some of you are probably thinking. Wait, I'm not a radio engineer or an emergency communications specialist. How on earth can I control this exercise? You can go ahead and breathe a huge sigh of relief. Subject matter expertise, or SME, is absolutely not required to be a controller. During the exercise, key planning team members will be floating around to assist with facilitation as the true subject matter experts. Your job isn't to know how to fix the broken communication systems. Your job is to observe the players who are trying to fix them. Section 3, Mastering Field Observation. Now, what's really interesting about this next slide is how it frames your core task during the simulation: relentless observation. This is where you do the real heavy lifting. It's about balancing two sides of the controller coin: objective and subjective observation. Objective methods, they're methodical and kind of cold. It is simply looking at your watch and writing down, okay, at 0915, the backup generator deployed. You are documenting chronological tasks, plain and simple. Subjective methods, on the flip side, require deep perception. You need to use your senses to actively listen and observe. Ask yourself, are the players communicating clearly? Is the stress level rising in the room? Are they working as a cohesive unit? You really need to capture both that rigid timeline and the messy human element in your notes before, during, and after the exercise concludes. And that brings us to Section 4, Facilitating the hot wash. This is arguably the most delicate part of the whole exercise. The hot wash is the immediate post-simulation review where all the learning actually gets solidified. Once the simulation formally concludes, you shift gears from a silent observer into a facilitator. The flow of operations is pretty straightforward. First, observe the official conclusion of the exercise. Second, gather your assigned players together. And third, help facilitate the discussion to unpack what just happened, what worked and what completely failed. But there is a massive trap right here that you have to avoid.
When you are facilitating that hot wash, you absolutely must not inject your own opinions, your own observations, or your own suggestions. I'm delivering this rule with the utmost gravity because it is, hands down, the #1 mistake new controllers make. If you jump in and say, well, I noticed you guys didn't do X, Y, or Z, you have just altered the player's natural reflection process. You literally contaminate the space. The entire goal of the hot wash is to hear their perspective of the event. Keep your observations locked in your notebook for the evaluators. They just do not get broadcasted during the player review. Keep the space clean and let the players do the talking.
Which brings us right to the end of our briefing. You now know your role, you've got your toolkit prepped, you understand exactly how to balance objective timing with subjective listening, and you know how to fiercely protect the integrity of the hot wash. You are ready for this. So I'm going to leave you with this final thought as you prepare to deploy into the field. When the radios finally go live, the stress mounts, and the simulation becomes reality, what will your observations reveal? Thank you so much for stepping up, and good luck out there.